Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this March 4th, 2010 school board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and so doing, Jordan, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll continue by reading our mission statement. The Newmarket School District is committed to the highest standards of quality education by creating a safe and successful learning community that embraces diversity and responds to the social, emotional, intellectual, and physical needs of every child. We are dedicated to fostering links to the broader community to ensure that students develop lifelong skills, enabling them to be contributing and productive members of society. Again, welcome everyone. Thanks to the folks here that it's nice to have in the room representing our school district quite well. Unfortunately, no one from the public here is here though, but I hope that folks are watching from home. Before we move on at all, I'd like to formally welcome Dr. Lister to his service in his interim role as our superintendent. We, I think, are very fortunate that we found you available and that you were willing. And even before you were officially on duty, I have to say that you were already on the job in helping us with the issues as they were unfolding with the weather over this past weekend. So we are indebted to you for that, and I appreciate your all you've done for us already.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So welcome. This is the moment in our agenda for the public to make comments, and seeing no one here, we'll move along to our minutes, for which we have several. We'll start with the minutes from the January 1st, 2010 meeting. Does anyone have a motion regarding that?
I make a motion to accept the minutes from January 21st.
I'll second that.
Thanks. Any discussion? We have these back again because there were some significant changes necessary that we found prior. And I found those issues to be cleared up, but okay. So we'll move to vote then. All those in favor of the motion to accept the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. And then we have February the 4th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 4th non-public meeting.
Second?
Thanks. Any discussion? I guess I'm looking for a memory clarification.
Didn't this one say that an action was taken and that
Yes,
there was no action?
there was no action taken. But by looking at these minutes, it indicates that we went into non-public at 6:30 and came out at
Yeah, it's kind of
just before 10. And
that's long.
that's a long time.
We must have come out at 7.
Oh, wait, sorry, there's, okay, so there's a missing item, I think, of coming out at 7.
Mhm.
But then we went in again at 8:48 PM. And that would have been pretty much 7 on the nose, given that that's when our regular meeting was to start. So I guess I would like offer to amend that, make that change. Any other changes? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, February 18.
I'll make a motion to accept the February 18th minutes.
Second?
Any discussion? The middle of page 3, Jean Parsons was speaking regarding bullying, I believe. The last sentence second to last sentence, I was struggling with. The elementary school principal, Scott Thompson, had a counseling group out of Plymouth State University to discuss cyberbullying.
Should be coming to discuss.
Coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anyone have anything else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, February 18, non-public.
Make a motion to accept the February 18th non-public minutes.
I'll second.
Discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That taken care of. Thank you. You haven't been with us for very long, Dr. Lister, but you have any good news to share with us this evening?
In the short time that I've been here, I have seen lots of good news.
Excellent.
But I would like to mention two things in particular. One is the major news is that we're back in school as of Tuesday, and after being out of school on Monday. And I met the buses at both schools on Tuesday morning, and we had a lot of happy campers coming off the buses and out of personal cars, and we were pleased to see that. And staff too are happy campers, I think. So very pleased that we're back in school, and I'll address some more of that later on in the superintendent's report. The second thing I'd just like to mention is congratulations to the boys basketball for the junior and senior high school for their semifinal competition at Plymouth State University. We're very proud of the boys basketball team, as we are with all sports and different activities, but they should be commended for going to the level of competition that they were at. And so congratulations to all the sports teams, and especially the boys basketball.
Thanks. And while I'm thinking of it, I want to thank you for being there at 7 o'clock in the morning for when school opened on that day.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks.
It's great to have your presence ready to go. Okay. Our program this evening is regarding the NEASC accreditation standards 1 and 2 presentation. Who wants to start?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Nancy.
Good evening. And welcome, Bob. It's really great that you're with us. We appreciate that you're willing to help us out at this point. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nancy Winterbottom, the School to Career Coordinator for the district, and I also have the privilege of chairing the accreditation self-study with the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. This evening, you're going to hear from two representatives from what we call the Standards 1 and 2. I'd like to just give you a little bit of background and context for that. The last time that I addressed the board, I distributed this handout, which is a graphic of the various standards. I will send them around again just in case you don't have them handy. But essentially, and just to review a little bit for those of you in the community who are watching on television, this process of what we call the NEASC accreditation self-study is a 3-year process involving the faculty, the staff, the board, the community, parents, and generally everyone in our community who cares about education to look at our school, the junior senior high school, from a large perspective of how are we doing, what are we doing well, and what do we need to improve. And the way the process works is to break that down by the 7 standards that you are looking at. Essentially, we began this process about 1.5 years ago, and it will culminate in November of 2011, specifically November 6th through 9, 2011. So we have another 1.5 years worth of work to do to meet the standards and to assess our progress on the various standards. In the most recent history of this process, we have conducted opinion surveys, which some of you participated in back in November and December. We assessed opinions of students, parents, and the staff. And we have composite reports of all of those results, which are available online, as well as available in hard copy at the public library and in the schools. If you'd like more information about that, the summary of those results, we'd be glad to provide them. It's also important to note that we now have a site on the school site at newmarketk12.nh.us. If you go to the SAU site and look under accreditation, you can view several items, one of which is what we call the School and Community Summary. Again, hard copies of which I have for the board tonight. And also frequently asked questions about the NEASC process, and also a statement about why we believe it's important as educators and responsible citizens to provide this process to our community. Let's see. Oh, and on that note, I would just say that all members of the community are invited to participate on committees. And increasingly, we're having people come forward and say, yes, I'd be interested in looking at the curriculum. Pardon me. I'd be interested in looking at the curriculum. I'd be interested in looking at how assessment is conducted in our school. So again, if you wish to participate in that process, please contact me or go to the website. These are the copies of the School and Community Report Summary, Sue, if you'd be willing to pass those around. That document, by the way, was approved by the faculty and staff in January of 2010, after several months of work on that. In recent months, the staff has worked during the professional development days on each of the standards. Each staff member is assigned to look at one of the standards. And tonight, you're going to hear from Nancy Pagnotta speaking about the work of the Standard 1 Committee, and from John Bridle working on, speaking about the work of the Standard 2 Committee. Are there any questions about this overview before we turn it over?
I think not.
Okay. I don't have them. I can go probably upstairs right now. Okay, Sue, good. Okay. Little breakdown of communication here, sorry. While we provide copies of the document about the work to date of Standard 1 Committee, I'm going to circulate to the board a piece from the NEASC about Standard 1. And the way that this is all set up is that each standard is articulated as a standard, and then there are what are called indicators about how we measure whether we are meeting that standard. So it's important to understand the language of standards. There are 7 standards, and again, you have a document that shows you visually what those 7 standards are. And what I'm going to give to you now is a piece that documents the literal statement of the standard, and then the 4 indicators that would assess whether we're meeting that standard. So that's Standard 1. John, do you have handouts that we should anticipate as well?
I do not have handouts, so if you want me to go ahead and talk about
Okay, then let me distribute the standard number 2 with the indicators. Is that good? Okay. So, members of the board, I'm going to now distribute the statement of standard number 2 with the indicators that go with that. And John Bridle will address the work that committee is doing at this point. And then we'll just bounce back to number 1. Is that good? Yeah, okay.
Standard two is curriculum. So thanks to the work of Pat Valentine and getting tech paths, some of the indicators have helped us out right away because we have a common way we all are writing our curriculum. So that has helped out a great deal. What we have done is we have 7 indicators of our curriculum standard, and we have a committee of about 15 people, and each one we paired up and we all took one indicator and we brainstormed what our school is doing well and not so well in those areas. Like mine was professional development. One of the struggles we're finding now is we have no accurate accounting for where people actually go for their workshops unless we go through each individual jacket or file of where they've gone. So that has been a little interesting, especially when we're looking at professional development strictly with curriculum-based spin on it. So that has been interesting. Through Tech Paths, we have had a great time looking at standards, making sure that the state standards are being met through all our classes and our curriculum, ensuring that it's in the 21st century model. We also are using the top-down web model, which you may have heard about through our Key 3 literacy initiative. That's one of the major things that Mark Levitt has been helping us make sure that we hit each one of those standards and each portion of it. It's on we work on a wiki, which is a website where we all have access to change it, update it, whatnot, and then we can all read each other's stuff. So sometimes in between our meetings, we do go back and we read what's happening, what's going on in other people's portion of it to make sure it all has one voice or one reflection. And then I expect that probably by May, we will be looking at the final version to share with the rest of the staff of that. So that's where we're at this point with Standard 2. Any questions?
Please.
With the curriculum, you mentioned the fact that in order to determine just how the curriculum is meeting the 21st century learning expectations, have you you haven't had a chance to go through the files to check on students with a certain amount of age back, years back in terms of graduation students?
No, we haven't gone into the history of students. What we've had trouble doing is figuring out what professional development days were taken because of special education concerns or because of, we haven't been able to separate it that way. So it's more of a teacher thing that we're having difficulty separating.
Are you going to have a chance to do this?
To assess students?
Yes.
We will be looking at that definitely. I mean, that's something we have to look at. You can't avoid it because when the committee comes, they'll be asking us about it. So, any other question?
It's maybe I don't have a question, but a comment in that I think that point that you made where this is essentially a NEASC requirement that we get a handle on what sort of teacher workshops everyone's going to. It's a good reason for why we are pursuing the NEASC process, in that sounds to me like, wow, we really should be able to say, oh, who went to that whatever at UNH, or, I'm coming up blank on what particular topic, but to be able to get the most out of it if someone did something else, and, kind of thinking about a train the trainer model, to be able to go to that individual and ask. Maybe you could talk about that at a staff meeting or a department meeting or what have you. There's a lot of rich stuff there that we'll get out of, that we're already, I think, seeing as a positive benefit from pursuing this reflective process. So,
I will say that I was one of the reluctant teachers about this whole process. to say the very least, I think is honest. And I really have come to value it not as they're coming in to evaluate us, but we're evaluating ourselves. And that has been amazing to be able to sit down with teachers in the English department, in all the other departments, and say, what are you doing in curriculum? Because in my 5 years prior to this, or some last year, we never had that opportunity unless we sought it ourselves. And I think that has been one of the most valuable things of this whole process. So as a teacher, I have found it useful, even though I was reluctant at first.
John, have you seen, in doing your self-evaluations with the other departments, have you seen where you could work with departments in an interdisciplinary approach and helping each other out?
We have. Now that I'm at the middle school, it is thoroughly throughout the middle school philosophy, but the high school teachers have definitely saw that as a bonus. I know that for me, the English and social studies teachers are so close that it was very easy when I was up there to know what they were doing, but I also sought it out and talked to them. But I think this has given some teachers who just don't have the time or just haven't thought of going to someone and saying, hey, what are you teaching? One of the great things that we have is we have Picturing America, which was a grant of 40 some odd pictures that are historical importance. And many teachers have approached me about using them and whatnot because we get to keep them as long as we display them. So that was one of the benefits of doing that. So we are doing it slowly, and I think we'll do it more often than as we go through this.
So it's making you a better teacher.
It's making, I would say it's making every staff member a better teacher.
Reflecting back on a workshop day that I had the opportunity to be in the building and wander around, I probably mentioned this at a school board meeting back around that time, but there was a great opportunity for the staff to give themselves a little bit of, hey, you know what? We're doing a lot, there's a lot of good that's happening here that everyone always just, runs to thinking about what's not happening quite right. And taking a minute or more to sit back and say, hey, you know what, we've got a good thing going on here, is just great for morale, if not directly for improving teaching. But through that, I think it's a great start. So.
Well, the thing is, when a team comes through here and finishes up and writes you up, you're going to say, gee, I can be a better teacher.
Where I would hope that we all say that before they come, and we can tell them where we're lacking. I know they're going to tell us, but I hope we know it before they come to us. So that's just me. But at this point, I'll let Standard.
Jump in, excuse me. I just want to comment a little bit about process before Nancy comes up. And that is, excuse me, following up on something that John said, which is that there are about 15 people working on standard number 2 on curriculum. And when their report is not complete, but complete as much as is possible within the next month or two, then what happens is that the work of that committee goes to the whole staff. And the whole staff needs to look at that and assess it and see whether they agree with it. And that has to happen with each standard. So the work of Standard 1, once they have come to a point of somewhat of closure, then their report goes to the full staff and the committee of all. And that has to happen with each of the 7 standards. So that's one piece of the process I wanted to mention. The other thing is that, if I understand correctly from Dr. Lister and from Mr. Andriski, the plan is that we will be back to you in 2 weeks with reports from standards 3 and 4, and then 2 weeks hence, after that, we'll be back to you with standards 5, 6, and 7, and so that within the next, whatever that is, 6 to 8 weeks, you will have heard from all of the standards committees. And then we will move forward as a full faculty staff to then congeal all of that information together in a series of reports. Yes, Chet?
Nancy, in regards to the curriculum itself in the committee, Are they kind of proposing to the school and the school board certain types of goals that we should be trying to achieve, being written as this is being studied? Should we be determining some sort of policies also to reach these particular studies? Not just to do the studies and forget about them. I think that we should be jotting major goals down. This is a possibility, and that's also with policies, as this is being done, to take full advantage of the whole system and as it approaches the dean.
My personal professional answer to that is as follows, but I also want to defer to, obviously, my colleagues, and in particular, the work of that committee, standard number 2, as well as you all as the leadership of the educational community. My personal answer is that, yes, we want to set that as a goal, but that right now, our focus needs to be on our own self-study about what we're doing well and what we need to improve. And then, after the team comes in and looks at that information, that's then when we begin to implement changes in the curriculum.
Yeah, but you're going to be.
My colleagues would like to add to that. Sure.
I don't personally feel, thinking about curriculum, that you should be listening to somebody else, and I think they should be listening to you in terms of what you evaluated in the school and yourselves. They come up with their ideas, that's fine, but they shouldn't be telling you what to do. That's where I look at it.
The big thing,
That's what I meant with that.
Mr. Jablonski, is that a lot of the curriculum is based on best practices and research best practices and aligning it to not only grade level expectations, but state level expectations. So that's what we're really making sure. So that's a lot of the indicators and benchmarks to make sure that we have that curriculum
Right.
aligned.
But Chris, what I'm saying is, at that point, while that motivates your creativity to get started, then jot something down and say, we should be doing this. This sort of mathematics, or this sort of science.
We're doing that a lot right now with the curriculum
Okay.
maps that we're doing through our tech paths. That's exactly what we're doing. It hits an essential question, it hits the assessment, it hits the state standards, it hits the grade level expectations, so that we're seeing that and mapping it out. And then we can go back and say, are we meeting all the standards? And when we get the NECAP scores, when we get our NEWA scores, we can say, are these all fitting in, or are we missing areas? And then going back and revisiting it. So that is part of the process. That's the best thing about this self-study, is that we actually get to look at what we're doing with our curriculum and how those scores go up. And that's how we're basing it on what we're doing with our kids, and then how does it relate to our surrounding areas and then nationally. So we are doing that in a way. They'll come in and they'll assess us based on how we're doing that, but we're really doing that, and that's how we write the plan. So in a way, we're doing it, not as formally as I think as you're proposing, but in a way we are doing that.
But it's those little things I'm thinking of, Chris.
Yep.
That each teacher should, I'm not trying to tell them what to do, I'm just saying, bringing it out. In terms of that little thing you should do, a little twist here, a little twist there in science and math and English, social studies or whatever.
I think that's what John related to, is that having all the teachers in the same room to talk about it, we're really now becoming common. When he talked about the key 3 literacy, we're not just doing it in reading or English, we're doing it across the curriculums, and they're all presenting it the same way in those content areas. When we're doing tech paths, they're all having essential questions, so it is becoming exactly that method. And that's not just in our school, that's K-12, which is the really nice thing, is that kids are starting to hear it, every single grade level. And I think that's the push that we're really excelling at, and why we're doing well in having that in that area. So we are doing it in the way that I think you're proposing. Thanks.
Please,
Mr.
Bob.
Chairman, if I could just add, this NEAS process is a huge endeavor for the school department. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of expertise. So I'd certainly like to commend all the staff that are involved in this. But I think the way we'd like to look at this is that we're going to present you with a couple of standards at a time, because Mr. Jablonski is asking some great questions about the pieces. And from now until you get the last presentation, you're going to have lots of pieces to the puzzle. And what we're asking you at this point is to hold those pieces together. This will all come together in the end. But we thought if we presented it in small tidbits to the board, to the community, and to the staff, everyone will get on board, everyone will be involved in the whole process, and therefore will be more successful at the end of this, because this is a big deal to go through the self-study and then have an evaluation team.
Yep.
Also, when you have your NEAS accreditation, it's very important to high school students when they apply to colleges, whether or not you have your certification and what kind of credits you have for that. So this is a big endeavor But there are lots of pieces to it, and you're asking a great question.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thanks for having us here. I'm going to share with you some copies of what the Standard One Committee has worked on. But before I do, and you could easily read it, I'd like to bring your attention to the fact that although we've been working on this for well over a year, Standard One changed entirely in the past couple of months by the commission. So up until a couple of months ago, we had thought, and we had been given information, that we were to create a new mission statement, which we did. And we polled the staff and created a new mission statement, and then all of a sudden we were told, no, in fact, you're not creating a mission statement. Now you're working on this new standard, which is called the Core Values, Beliefs, and Learning Expectations, which directly relates to the mission statement. So really, our committee has only met twice to work on this. So what you see before you is what we've put together in meeting 2 times. If you read through it, you'll see that what we've outlined are the things that we have already worked on in our building, according to the core values, beliefs, and learning expectations. We do have some questions. One question being, what is a 21st century learner? What does that mean? It's pretty broad. So we haven't heard back from NEASC as to what is it that they're looking for. We can assume what they're looking for, but it's not concrete. And then in the end, we're asking if the school board would agree, because certainly our committee would agree, that perhaps we do need to change our mission statement. And if you would give some thought to that and would want this as part of the process, because our mission statement hasn't changed in quite some time. So if you read through this, you'll see that we've outlined what we already do in our building. And a funny thing today, I was going through my emails, and Mr. Pavlidis put out an email about the president asking, what does 21st century education mean to educators? And I went on that website, and there aren't any answers yet. So there's a lot to talk about.
I disagree with you. There are a lot of answers out there. For example, the people who don't have the jobs and haven't had the jobs aren't needing this 21st century education, and the jobs are changing, and this is what we have to look at. Is exactly
But
how
what we're saying, Chet, is what is a 21st century learner? What does that look like?
Well, we can't draw you a picture, but I would say that we have to look at global financing, no question there.
Technology.
And I've asked this even at the SST. I told them that we should be teaching something for our students to understand something about finances, not only in our community or our country, but the world. We have countries like China and India who have tremendous populations. You know, exactly how are they doing it, you know, and we're going to fall behind and then find out we're not doing it? That's what I'm saying.
And we would agree with you. Certainly, there's a lot that we can work on, but we wanted more concrete information, and I don't know that we have everything. You can see we've worked on it.
And I'm glad you are, because that's exactly what I think you should be doing, coming right out with it and questioning that.
And then I think NEASC will certainly help guide us in that direction. Just to go back to the curriculum that John is working on, so that you're aware, even though I'm not on that committee then asks questions of all of us, so that we're all giving input to the curriculum, just as core values, beliefs, and learning expectations. We are asking all staff to help us out as well.
Good.
So it's a mix of everybody. And even on our committees, it's not just teachers, you have your assistants on there, you have the administrators on there. So it's a mix of everybody.
Good.
Did you have a question,
I was
Linda?
going to say, Nancy, it would be really nice to see the mission statement that you that your group
I was
came up
looking
with.
for it.
Well, we were hesitant to give it to you because
Uh-oh.
we have one.
hesitate.
Well, we have one. I don't know that, I would honestly say that I can't say that the whole staff is in agreement with what we had, because then it stopped. We stopped our work on that. So it was a work in progress. We were hoping that's what we were going to be coming here to you with, but we had to stop that to start this. So we would hope you'd give some consideration to allowing us to continue to work on that, as well as to work on this.
It seems to me, it's the stuff of core values and beliefs as your mission statement. So I think, it sounds like they moved the goalposts, but it's still within the same realm of thought. So I guess the specific goal that you're trying to reach is, a little bit different. But I think it'd be very valuable to bring that to closure, especially since it sounds like there's a tremendous amount of work has already gone into thinking, and there's a lot of reflecting that happens with thinking about mission statements and those kind of broad brush sort of thoughts. So
I remember back in the summer when we first met, we talked about our goals and stuff. Didn't we talk about ourselves as a group looking at that? And you had said, look it over, see. So I think it's a living, breathing thing, and it does need to be constantly, evaluated, reviewed. And I mean, I can't say honestly that I've done that yet, but I think we are all cognizant of the need.
There's a few different mission statements around. The school district has one that I just read earlier.
The high school has one.
The high school has one, and the elementary school has one. So
All of
we,
them.
and as you may recall from your very first meeting, I think, was in our policy manual, one of the policies is that we are to annually review our mission statement. And I think that should extend to, each of the mission statements that we have. That, if we want to just affirm the one we have because it's in alignment with our thinking, great. If it's time to make changes, and it sounds like maybe an update is here for the junior, senior high school, boy, I think that makes a lot of sense to bring forward. I personally would love to see it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the committee would be happy.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay, great.
And,
And did you have any questions on what we've presented you with? I know there's a lot here, but again, what we were doing is working on each of the indicators and addressing how we meet those indicators.
Nancy, what is going to be your approach to determining the 21st learning expectations?
Well, we have questions out there,
All
and
right.
certainly we think we know
Right.
what it is. We're certainly going to use this website of the president's.
Could the University in Hampshire help?
Perhaps.
Can I make a suggestion too? That maybe at one of your, oh my gosh, what do your daily,
About professional development
no,
days.
this is for the students, your,
Advisory?
At your advisory, ask students to come up with bullet points. How do
do
you
you-
consider yourself a 21st century learner? Because from the mouths of babes come some great things.
Jordan, would you like to answer that? Oh, putting you on the spot.
And if you could
No,
give
I'm
3
kidding.
examples,
I'm
that would
kidding.
be terrific as well.
Nancy, there was a professor from the university in the economics department over there who wrote in a Foster's an article about 21st century learning. It was very good. I have it somewhere at home, but you may want
By
to.
all means, if you dig it up.
It really, he talks about exactly where jobs are going to go and learning and all this stuff, projections more so, but very good.
Thanks, Chet.
Thank
I mean,
you.
21st century, I mean, it's a good expression for thinking about the future and, where I'm hearing things that, our kids are going to be, working in fields that haven't been invented yet.
That's right.
It's hard for us to define what they'll need for those jobs that haven't been really, they're not
Designed.
even named yet. So I think we just need to keep pushing the looking into the future thing, call it what you will, but we need to be thinking out more than, okay.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah, whether we're, in the beginning, middle, or end of the century, we always need to be pushing the bounds of using the
What's out there and
best
what can we-
practices in learning and teaching and making sure that we're educating our students for being competitive in the international
Absolutely.
Do
workplace.
you want another suggestion? If I was on that committee, where would I go for help in terms of who's doing research and everything? I would go to the Expert Academy and say, can you come over and give us a speech on where your projections are for your students for the 21st century in terms of jobs, schools, and all that there? There's nobody that does any more research than they do. They have to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I love the idea of having an opportunity to get bite-sized pieces of each of these of components. So I look forward to more. And thanks for all the effort that's gone in thus far. Okay, Bob, you have a superintendent's report. You're day 4 here in your
I could-
tenure.
Mention a couple of items, please. First of all, I'd like to thank the community, and I'm somewhat in awe at what I observed over the weekend with the community, how they worked together, everybody worked together to be able to get through some very difficult times. Those people didn't have heat, didn't have electricity. Just in being here over the weekend and working with some of the school department people, thinking about the kids coming back and food and bus transportation and everything. So coming from another community, I have to tell you, even though I'm somewhat familiar with Newmarket, I'm very impressed with how people work together in the community to be able to pull this all together. And in addition, on Monday, we heard that we wouldn't have any electricity in the schools until Thursday. And the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Barry, called me, and because it seemed like Newmarket seemed to be a place that they were really concerned with because of the power of the storm that came through here. Dr. Barry told me that she was going to be in touch with Governor Lynch, and I understand he was in town later in the day. We talked about the needs of and the concerns that we all had about not being able to have school until Thursday or Friday. And through some divine intervention, an hour and 45 minutes later, the electricity went on in the high school and in the elementary. So thank you, everyone, for making that happen. And but it really did take the village aspect and everybody working together to pull that off. And I am very impressed with the concern that people had for kids in the community. Next week at the elementary is Turn Off TV Week. And I know that there's information that you'll receive from the elementary principal and available on the website. So that's very important to know about that. And we all want to set a good example for that. There are all kinds of activities that are going on all week. Family night at the elementary is March 31st, 6 to 8 p.m. And I know everyone will get more information about this. I was informed yesterday, Lisa Kumpf has informed us that the Newmarket Community Education Partnership has recently approved 2 grants for the junior-senior high school. One will provide 14 pair of snowshoes, and the other will fund a girls' Zumba program for grades 6 through 9 for 5 weeks. So again, it's all about community, and I'm very impressed. I also would like to mention that on Wednesday, March 10th, from 8 to 11:15, the spring career fair will occur at the the junior high and the high school, and everyone knows how passionate Nancy Winterbottom is about that. it's kind of like be there or you're in trouble. The leadership meeting that we had this week with the people in the district, there was a lot of talk about the cyberbullying centered around assemblies for students that are coming up, and I believe you have some information about that, talking about professional development, how to involve parents. So it seems like that's an ongoing concern in the district, and it's nice to see that people are talking about the issues and really trying to come up with some other opportunities. And the last thing that I have is I would really like to thank the school board, especially Chairman Chase, and everyone for asking me to be here for a brief amount of time. I feel honored to be asked to be here. I'm looking forward to this. It's a great opportunity. And I'd just like to thank everyone, and will make myself available whenever you need, if you need to meet with me, and we'll continue forward. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good start.
Jordan,
All right.
anything to share with us this evening?
I got a good amount. First, I'll start off with winter sports. Girls varsity basketball ended their season a few weeks ago when they lost to Sunapee in the quarterfinals. They ended their season with a 14-6 record. And as I've heard, that's one of the best records they've had in a really long time. I mean, and especially with our girls sports, but not just basketball. Like they really have a hard time getting past the first round. So it was a big accomplishment on them. So congratulations to them. Like we said in the beginning of the program, our boys varsity basketball lost in the semifinals on Tuesday at Plymouth State University to Groveton. They ended their season with a 18-3 record. So that's another great record. Since winter sports are now done, spring sports are starting up on March 22nd, which include baseball, softball, and track. So look out for the dates. Probably next meeting, I'll probably tell the dates. I'll hear the dates for the tryouts. So for project graduation, bingo is on this Saturday, and the doors open at 11:15 in the high school cafeteria. And they are still selling the Red Sox raffle tickets, which is to what Yankee game is it? Is like it?
It's 4 seats to the Yankees game on April 6th,
Yep.
Tuesday, April 6th.
So,
The seats you're on TV if you're in the seat.
yeah, they're still selling those. So, if you want any of the tickets, please contact Ruth Cartledge at 603-659-5045. The career fair is March 10th. From 8 to 11:15 in the gym. Our big bully assembly, which I'm really looking forward to, is on March 15th. And just to summarize what's going to be going on, John Halligan, I hope I pronounced that right, will be doing the assembly, and he'll be telling us his story about his 13-year-old son, Ryan, who took his own life because of bullying that occurred in his school and on internet in 2003. So, I'm really looking forward to this, and a lot of people are too. And what I've heard, it's a lot of people have said it's an amazing presentation. So,
Is that going to be, do you know?
is it last period?
9:30 to 11.
9:30.
High school, 7:30 to 9 o'clock for middle school.
9:30 to 11. Thank you.
And then we had Poetry Out Loud on February 17th in the high school music room. Went really well, and the students that participated were very enthusiastic and intriguing. And our winners, our third place winner was Eddie Pimason. Our second place winner was Robert Montagani.
Yay!
And our first place winner was Stephen Cooper, so congratulations to them.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Speaking of project graduation, I'm thinking I'd probably do well in the Red Sox raffle since I didn't get any calls on the February
The calendar.
calendar
I
items.
know.
Lobsters. Guess who doesn't eat seafood?
I know.
We'll talk later then. So, well, thank you, Jordan,
Yep.
for all that information. did you have something to add, Linda?
Well, nothing to add, but I was actually hoping to talk a little bit more about what happened during the storm, and in particular, how we fared, like food-wise and things like that. If you could maybe talk a little bit about, and any other damages or anything that happened in the building.
Building was actually in good shape compared to where we've been at in the past. We had minor leaking, mostly in the gymnasium, and it came in through the HVAC, so it wasn't the roof, which was a good bonus down there. We did have some leaking in the gymnasium where the wall portion came up. It's a newer wall that had been built where the two buildings come together. So the leaking came down through the wall. So it's a building problem. It's not a roof problem. It's a building problem with that wall. So that's all being assessed by Brian O'Connor right now. So he's on top of that. And the majority of that came down on Thursday, and then when I went in there and assessed the building on Friday, that's when the majority of the leaking was happening. We did have some leaking over the skylights in one of the science classrooms, and there was some mold buildup there, but that was the majority of where the leaking happened in the building. So we were in pretty good shape in that capacity. Food-wise, obviously we lost all dairy products, and then some fruits and vegetables that needed to be kept cold. But for the most part, we were in pretty good shape in that capacity too. The freezer never got over 17 degrees. We kept it locked up, so the food in there was kept well frozen. So that was a bonus. And then obviously the kitchen and the refrigerators in the kitchen. That's the portion that we just didn't take any chances. I talked to Mr. Lister. He sent us up there, and there was a crew of us taking out everything and throwing it out. So probably a couple $1,000s, but I met with Candy Jaros actually on Tuesday, and she did the assessment for the town, and so that's all put in for calculations to be reimbursed for what we did lose. So it was a bonus. Other than some trees around the building, and there was a major sinkhole that did happen out on our sidewalk. So that's all stuff that we did put into for an assessment to be reimbursed. So that's the shape that we were in.
Chris, the leaking through the wall, did it come through the concrete where
Correct.
the concrete should be sealed probably from the outside?
Yep.
It's actually the same situation that you had on the cafeteria.
Yep.
It's the in-wall flashing that wasn't applied, so we need to put that flashing in when we're getting asked on it. That's all. And it only happens when the wind blows in a certain direction and it rains in a certain direction.
Of course.
It just so happens it was on that.
We had wind
Yes.
and rain.
So,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it'll happen again.
So, but otherwise, it was pretty good.
And do we know anything about the elementary school? If there was anything?
There was no.
I can just, there was no damage to the building. We had the same situation with the food, that we discarded everything in the refrigerators, but we're able to keep things in the freezers. There was no damage to the building that we're aware of, and we fared very well, I think.
Thanks. While we're talking about that storm a little bit, I just would like to mention quickly that there's been some discussions, I guess at the town council meeting last night, something came up about putting a generator in at the high school building. And there's kind of a lot of players that need to get together and talk about that. And it sounds like it's been being talked about since Dr. Chase was the superintendent back in the day. Anyway, I'm hoping that that's something that we can move forward on, and there's Candy Jaros was mentioned earlier. She needs to be part of it, as well as the school facilities people, folks from the town. So I'm hoping that we can facilitate a discussion so that we can assess, okay, is this a feasible thing to do, and get some really solid answers on that, rather than letting it go until after the next storm, when people are starting to ask questions and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping that we can understand that better in the next couple of weeks.
What sort of a committee is being organized for this?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm going to look to Bob, I think, to some extent, to take his experience from elsewhere, and I'm seeing, someone from Ed Winowski's office should be involved. Rick Molaski, Candy, I mentioned, Brian O'Connor, and I think those folks or their designees need to get together and and talk about, okay, what would, what wiring changes might need to take place in the building so that we can only energize the kitchen, the gymnasium, and
Locker room.
the locker room, so that, what we want to be able to do is feed people, give people a place to sleep, and shower, which makes it, that's kind of the reason why that's the building of choice. But it'd be nice to understand that, with the multiple additions that have been on that building, that complicates the electrical piece to some extent, but also though the gymnasium, which is, and the locker rooms are the newest piece. So conceivably, the electrical connections might not be that complicated, but I don't want to guess before we have the right people looking into it. But and what other things, cots, that sort of thing. We certainly don't have room in that building to store such things. So there's a lot that plays into it. So I think we really need to look at it from the school has a role, but the town has a role as well. So I'd like to see that understood.
At the meeting last night, I think one of the counselors did say, let's make sure that this is part of our agenda. Let's get a committee together and get this resolved. So I know that they want, they're going to be very proactive about it. And, I guess, we as a board want them to know that we're completely on board with this as well. And we'll do whatever we can, provide, whomever they need on our end too, so that this can be available for the community.
Can I suggest, without talking to Sue Caswell here, that we will volunteer to, because I watched the meeting on the computer today, the meeting from last night, and heard the discussion, and it seems like a lot of people are interested in moving forward, but if somebody doesn't take charge and move forward, it's not going to happen. And before you know it, and this is not the first storm that Newmarket's experienced. With your permission, we'd like to maybe contact some of those people that have the same concerns, pull together a meeting, and at least do some introductory discussions to see, because I don't know what the resources are for, a generator. I have had some experience getting generators for buildings and knowing how important that is. So if we can just move forward, if you don't mind, and then report back to you at the next school board meeting about what our progress is, and just begin the process anyways.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sue, do you have a business department update for us tonight?
Update, well, I have, start with voting on Tuesday. I have a newsletter, copies of a newsletter that we put together that will be in both schools. It's at the town hall. Try to get some at the library, two other locations, just to let people know what's on the ballot.
Give me a call.
Do you think we could send these out to our friends?
Would you like extra copies?
No, I mean like electronically.
Oh, sure.
Like that,
Yeah.
that's not a problem, right?
No.
Like I can.
No. Well, I'm hoping that this is viewable as a PDF or
It
otherwise
is.
on the website.
It is, and we will, actually tomorrow, we'll put it on the website tomorrow.
Okay.
So you could put a link just to that.
Well, I actually already made it into a PDF at work, but I wanted to ask permission first before I sent it. So, yeah, okay.
Sure. That'd be great.
Yeah, distribute it far and wide, and electronically
Well,
is
we have- we
certainly
have-
my preferred way.
Friends who are coaches that have all sorts of emails of all the kids and isolate them and just send them all out. And I have people that have volunteered. If I give them this
That'd be great.
information, they would. So, great. I will do that.
So, voting Tuesday,
Yes.
7 to 8, Town Hall Auditorium.
And we have to be here to sign the warrant.
Yes.
Yes, at the end, we need at least a quorum, but hopefully
Okay.
we'll all be able to at least stop in. It's just a matter of waiting until all the tapes spit out and the counting is done to sign off on it. So, yeah, that's coming right up. I mean, we seem to be been kind of waiting since the deliberative session, but this coming
Okay.
Tuesday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., right downstairs here. hopefully we'll have a significant turnout.
Okay.
Thanks, Sue.
And the other thing I have is the audit. Do you have that?
Sue, before you move on to that, could I just have you explain to the community members, you and I had spoken on the phone earlier this week, and just some of the confusion around where it says underneath the pie chart, the proposed budget for 2010, 2011. I think folks misinterpret that information, so if you could just kind of clarify that for the voters.
I think what you're referring to is the total budget and what
Yes.
it's made up of.
Yes.
By law, we have to appropriate all funds, even if they're not supported by taxation. So food service and federal funds, which are totally self-supporting, are included in that. So those three items, the general fund, the food service, and the federal funds, make the total budget, make up the total budget. So by law, we do require that individuals vote to appropriate the funds for food service and federal funds, even though they are not taxpayers' dollars. So that gets a little confusing to people to an understanding of why food service and federal funds are included, but they are included in the total appropriation. The voters, the voting public has to give you the authority to expend those funds, even though they're not necessarily supporting them with taxpayers' dollars. Is that,
So does this pie chart only represent the general fund?
that pie chart does, yes.
Okay.
Clarify that.
Yeah, that's,
That is only the general fund budget, only the portion of the budget that's offset by taxes.
okay.
Thank you.
So Sue, the food service, for example, is self-supporting.
Yes. So, and if you were to look at the forms that we post, the MS-27, you'll see a corresponding revenue that's the exact same as that appropriation. You'll see $325,000 in revenue, the same for federal funds. You'll see that matching revenue, so they're self-supporting. What's that?
All set.
Thanks for all that work. I mean, I know you were hoping to get it to what? Did you want it to?
Well, and
Got it
I
to
can't
one
take
page.
credit for all of
One
it. I
piece.
can't take credit for all of it. I did have help from Deb Boatwright and Rachel. They both helped me with it.
Very nicely done.
Another community effort.
So, moving on to the audit.
So, yeah, it's that time of year where we get,
Well, actually, it's early, too. We're ahead of the game. Usually, have to ask for an extension because the deadline for the state is March 30th, so we are ahead of the game. We really tried hard to get things out. And the other, we put this in the district report, so that's why I wanted you to have the pages that are actually going to be in the school district report. So those pages that you will see when the report is finished, unfortunately, we had a little glitch with that, with the power, so it won't be available until Monday, the school district report. Those pages that you have there, all the standard pages that we always put in there, just kind of give you an overview of the financial status of the district. Obviously, the letter from the auditors about the process. I don't know if you want me to go into any detail, because it is confusing because of the way it needs to be presented now. After all the accountability laws, we have inventories in there, buildings, and it's a little different than it used to be. But if I can direct your attention to page 24, which is one of the items that usually is of most interest, and that is the fund balance. As you can see, the total fund balance. And you can see the unreserved and reserved. Designated, the 20,000 is the 10,000 to each of those reserve funds, trust funds. The encumbrances, that was a number of items that the board had voted to expend before the end of June, one of them being the lift, which has finally been completed. I don't know if you have that update, but the lift is up and running and been inspected by the state, so the lift is completed. So that was one of the encumbered amounts. And then the unreserved was the $414,915, and the bulk of that was the elevator money and additional revenue from Medicaid. We had a fund balance, and I think that was a question that came up during deliberative session, and that is the fund balance that we ended up with
That's the
last year.
breakdown of it,
That's
yeah.
the breakdown
Yeah.
of it right there. And actually, there is a breakdown on the expenditures too, if you're interested in that, on one of these pages. Yes, you can see on page 23, if you're interested in how the monies are divvied out. Breakdown there.
Sue, on the liabilities, we're not paying any interest anywhere, are we?
Excuse me, paying any
Interest,
for,
bonds.
no, we have no more bonds.
Okay.
And you can see that the newer item in there over the last few years is depreciation, which you wouldn't have seen in the past.
What are we depreciating?
Actually, anything that we purchase over a certain amount, we record every year our capital assets.
Mhm.
We put them in our inventory, and then there's a formula that calculates how much of that we take off the books every year. So equipment, could be the roof from the elementary was a capital item. Anything like that gets put into that.
Okay.
Is that part of capital improvement?
Yes. Anything capital gets put into
So
there.
it's like in things, you have things, but they all wear out sooner or
Right,
later.
Right, sooner or later. They come off the books. And then the other piece that I've included would be, and this is new over the last few years, would be what they called, I gave you a copy of the prior audit findings, and I think I explained to you some time ago that it's now required that the little things that they used to talk to us about and say, you know what, you really should do this, you really should do that, now have to be in writing. And then we have to respond. So I have to respond to each one of those items. I don't think that I gave you my,
Yeah.
I did give you my response
Yep.
to those findings. And if you want me to just go through them real quickly,
I'm sorry, Sue, before you do, can you tell me, for the 2008, were all of those addressed appropriately and?
well,
No,
some of them are
just-
still gonna come back.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest ones is internal controls. And I think last year you approved my attendance of what we call the COSO project with our auditors. And it's a huge endeavor to try to bring all of our operations in line with the standards that the federal government sets for accountability. And it's difficult to get that all in place at one time. We're still working on it. One of the things we're working on is some checklists and things like that to make sure that everything is being done properly. And one of the problems we always have with that is personnel. We don't have enough people for those checks and balances. So we're working on that. And that's one of the biggest ones in here. One of the other ones that you'll find in here is something we've addressed with Infinite Campus. I think you'll see that in there.
With the POS
With the
related.
POS system and the food service. Technically, the way the auditors would like to see things, and I don't know that we'll ever see that, is that they've talked about they're going to go down at some point and they're going to stand there and they're going to watch the process and they want to see, everything perfectly accounted for in food service. And that's a little bit impossible. I mean, to say that, everything the student takes on their tray is accounted for is a little impossible, I think, as far as food service. But we're doing the best we can, and I think we're doing a great job with that. We do inventories, we do, I think they talked about things like oil and all of that, just making sure that we know where we are every day with all of our supplies and equipment and all of that. So that, and a big part of that was food service, which is ongoing. It's ongoing, point of service system. I must say, I've talked with them, and the system we had before, this is far better than the one we had before. But it's a work in progress, we're still working. And we're hoping to get some more detailed reports out of that system, but we're still working on that. Those are the biggest items on here. If there was anything else? I don't think so. Have any questions about anything that you read in those findings?
So this particular audit, is it directed by RSA?
Yes.
It is.
Actually, for federal funds, if you receive over, I think the limit is 300,000, it's required by federal law. And actually, I just certified with the federal clearinghouse yesterday and sent this off to the federal clearinghouse. It has to go to the federal government. So.
You feel pretty good about this audit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're going the right direction in those areas of documenting the Infinite Campus, and it sounds like it's the things that remain are narrowing down on the procedures that aren't thoroughly
Right.
written out and the challenges where we have a small staff, so having another person sign off on various things is where it's tricky.
Right. And I don't think it's ever going to be perfect,
Mhm.
but we're working towards that. It's our goal. And if I did send you the entire audit, I believe. If you'd like one, I do have copies. I think they're pretty extensive. kill too many trees, but I do have copies in the office, if anyone's interested.
Light reading over the weekend, I'm all set.
I'll open up my laptop and have a cup of tea late at night if,
And they're pretty boilerplate. If you were to read an audit in other school districts, you find them to be pretty much the same.
mhm. Well, I'm sure that doing that federally mandated prescriptive audit requires, it's not the whimsy of the CPA, it's very much guided by other needs. Bob, I'm curious if you have any, having, I'm sure, read more of these than I ever hoped to. If you have any input on the audit reports, anything that standed out from your perspective?
Just, I'd like to say, I think that it's very well represented and presented by Susan, and I think she did a great job with it. And it really reflects what's happening in the school department, so I think she did a great job with it.
Great, thank you.
As usual.
As usual.
Okay. Is that all, Sue?
That's all.
It makes it seem, just the audit, well, we take 5 minutes with it, but how much of your life it represented, I don't want to even go there. So, what you do is very much appreciated.
Oh, Sue, by the way, do you think we, in terms of what she's written up in terms of some of the responses, should we be jotting down something in regards to policies? Or going over our policies out from this audit?
We'll be getting to that.
We're gonna get to
We'll be
that?
bringing some of that to you.
All right. All right,
That's a
good.
good point, yes.
Good.
We will.
Because now's the time to hit the policies when we're fresh with this audit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Good point.
Okay, do we have any resignations or other leave requests at this
We do
time?
not.
And no nominations are necessary, as I recall.
That's correct.
About that. And we have a manifest for February.
We do. I would like to make a motion to accept the manifest in the amount of $306,002.85.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now to Erica with that, if you would. And we are down to the calendar. Several things have already been mentioned. Going bingo this Saturday, was it? What time was that?
11:15, doors open.
Okay, and voting Tuesday morning, or Tuesday, 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. Please, if you have a moment to spare, we appreciate your input. There were some other items too.
Career fair is on
Is on
March 10th,
Wednesday.
The bullying thing.
March 15th.
Could these things ever be put on the calendar in advance?
I know. I always think that.
The well, they are on the district website.
Right.
On the calendar there, but yeah, it would be
Makes more sense.
easy to populate this calendar with those things. Yeah, I would
Since we
think.
get the calendar anyhow, it's just
Right.
more efficient.
Our next meeting is on the 18th, and anything else of note you would like to mention?
Can we review again just our responsibilities for reviewing the superintendent's resumes? When we can start doing that? Was that on the 15th? After
16th.
15th, 16th?
Or is it the 16th and 17th?
I thought it was the 17th through the, might be the 16th. We had hoped to have them back by the 16th. Definitely the 17th through the 19th. And you had set the 20th up for a meeting?
20th, but we had 2 days that we could come in and you were going to stay open.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's still
2 or more.
2 or more.
So definitely on the 17th?
Definitely on the
Okay.
17th.
And then did we confirm the time on the 20th for when we were meeting?
We
As a
said,
board?
we tentatively
9
I
said
want to
9
say
o'clock.
we said tentatively 9.
Okay. Thank you.
Who's going to bring the green beer? It's St. Patrick's Day.
It's St. Patrick's Day?
On the 17th,
Yeah, no, I meant the 17th. Sorry, I know, we can't do that.
Okay, thank you for reminding us of that.
How are we doing on receiving applications and stuff? I mean, is it positive? They aren't?
The School Boards Association.
Right.
Oh,
They'll-
that's right.
they'll-
They're
they'll
doing that
send-
first, then we get them. I forgot about
There,
that. My
there
bad.
may be some that are, I believe the Ed Jobs posting might indicate Mark LaRoche's email,
Oh,
which is
okay.
still alive.
Okay.
And we've got the ability to get those from that. So, there may be some that come here, but I think the majority will find, those packets will be in Ed Comstock's office. So, yeah, we look forward to see, I'm curious to see what that pile looks like.
So the meeting on the 20th, did we determine if that was going to be a non-public? And, yeah, and so that's been, so you'll worry about posting and everything, so, okay.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, I see the need for a brief opportunity to discuss personnel matters. So I would entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2C.
So moved.
Thanks, Chet.
Second.
Thanks, Kelly. And as we've been instructed, it's important that we call the roll for that. Are you prepared to do that?
I am not prepared to do that. I don't have a,
Did they give you a cheat sheet?
I don't have a cheat sheet.
Oh, boy.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you know what? I bet on that handout, our names are all on that, on your,
Oh, yeah, they are, at the bottom of this,
Yeah, but can you read it?
Oh, we
very
can,
bottom.
Very small.
But to
we can do
place
that.
to document it.
I'll make sure I have a cheat sheet next time. Okay, regarding the motion then, what is your pleasure? Linda Mantanagi,
aye.
Chester Jablonski,
Aye.
Kelly Foster,
Aye.
Meg Looney Moore,
Aye.
and Cliff Chase, Chair.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Good night.
So nobody gave you that
Bye-bye.
little thing for us to write the time in and everything?